Hi, and welcome to the Book Bar, where everything bookish is on the menu. I'm Ann Jeanette Barr, and today we're going to talk about 3 children's books that I have read recently. Here on my channel, I like to talk about adult books and children's books, and we'll get back to some great adult books really soon. And I love to make pairings between the books that I read and the drinks that I think would go well with that experience. And today, since I have multiple books, I just decided to go ahead and make some tea that's one of my favorites. And you can always find links to the tea or other drink that I am going to be drinking in the comments below. And today there's a discount for this tea drops. This is the citrus ginger flavor. It's one of my new favorites. I like it even better than the one I said was my new favorite last time, the white chai. It's just really yummy. So I'm going to make myself some tea and then get back to the books. If you're new here and you don't know me well yet, I'll introduce myself a little bit. I am an author. I am also a mother of 4 children, and I am currently going through classes to become a literary agent in the future. And I love to read, obviously, and I love to read aloud to my kids. My children are right now almost 6 all the way up to 13. I still read aloud to my 13-year-old all the time, and you'll see all of them occasionally here on this channel. These are some of the books that we've read together recently. I didn't read all of these to all of the children, but I'll go through that as I highlight each book. And I have enjoyed all 3 of these so much that I decided you really need to know about them. So if you have children in your life to purchase books for or to read to, I hope you'll consider these. I'll of course leave links in the description box. First up is Adventures with Waffles by Maria Parr. We just finished reading this last night in anticipation of an author interview this morning on Read Aloud Revival, which is a great membership site for parents and educators who want to know more about children's literature. And it's run by Sarah McKenzie, who's just one of the nicest people ever, and I highly recommend you check out her website, both the membership side and just all of the great content she puts out for everyone. She's a great resource for finding really high quality books to read to your kids and also to just hand them to read without worrying so much about whether or not it's worth it, because I've never read anything that she's recommended that I regretted. So Adventures with Waffles was originally written in Norwegian. That is where Maria Parr lives and is from. And the title, I'm not going to say it in Norwegian, but translates to Waffle Hearts. But for the US edition, they call it Adventures with Waffles. And I found out this morning that it's been translated into like a dozen languages. So, and it's worth it because this is such a delightful, hilarious book to share with your family or with any kids in your life who like funny stories. There's really, you can't think of a person who wouldn't appreciate the fun and whimsy of this story. It also touches on plenty of real difficult issues that children experience in a way that I think will really resonate with them. So it's a good discussion starter and really just a good book to nurture a child's inner life because I think they'll be thinking about the things that happen in this book for a while. So, Adventures with Waffles follows 2 characters, Trill and Lena, and that's not how you say them if you have a Norwegian accent, but I don't. They are next-door neighbors, about 10 years old, and they get into all kinds of trouble together. Trill is the boy, Lena is a girl, and they have just the most fun friendship. Lena is a firecracker, instigator, full of not so great ideas, and Trill is her backup, her support, and kind of the steady figure. And most of the story, all the story, is written from Trill's perspective. It's set in a Norwegian village, which is evidently quite similar to the Norwegian village that the author grew up in and still lives in. And it is set sometime after World War II. It feels pretty contemporary, but again, in a Norwegian village. So it mentions things like radios, but it doesn't pinpoint the time exactly. And this book is full of emotional ups and downs and lots of inner musings on Trill's part, wondering if Lena considers him the best friend that he considers her, and lots of difficult moments with growing up and with just family relationships, with all these hilarious hijinks thrown in when they get themselves into all kinds of sticky situations that they have to get themselves out of. It has a wonderful fast-paced feel to it and a great ending, so definitely check this one out. And also the sequel to this book comes out in August, so read it before then so you can jump right into the next one. Let's check on this tea. If you've never used Tea Drops tea before, there will be a link and a discount code in the description. It's pressed loose leaf tea, so you get the leaves actually in the tea. Some of them end up sinking to the bottom, but you don't notice that they're ground so finely you don't really notice it anyway. So you can drink the leaves that settle, you can toss them out, but it's really yummy. So I forgot to mention that I read that last book, Adventures with Waffles, to my daughter as part of a mother-daughter book club that we started, and it's been difficult to meet over Zoom. You guys can probably relate to that. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, so we're going to be discussing that soon, and we're so looking forward to being able to meet in person because waffles do play a prominent role in this story, and it would be so much fun to have a waffle bar as part of a book club. So I hope that you get a chance to do that if you read this book with other people. Next up is Children of the Longhouse by Joseph Bruchac. I read this to my 10-year-old daughter and my 8-year-old son together as part of our history curriculum. We homeschool, so we do have a regular curriculum we follow, but I wanted to put in a few extras this year to supplement what we already have done, and this was my first time reading this one, and it was such a good choice. So this is set pre-colonial New York area. There's a map actually. Yeah, so here's New York and Pennsylvania, and it's set in a Mohawk village. It gives you a really helpful tree here to understand how the different tribes and the clans within the tribe break down. This book does not mention Europeans at all, and that's what I was really looking for. A lot of our books that talk about indigenous peoples in the Americas come at it from a perspective of when Europeans started coming and discovering America, and there's a lot of really great books written in that time period, and that time period is often emphasized when we learn about Native Americans, Indigenous Americans in history curricula. But I wanted something that was just a good story that had a folktale feel to it. We like to read folktales from various cultures because folktales are woven into literature and our history and the way we speak and relate to each other across cultures. So it's a really great way to get to know a culture, to read their folktales or to hear their folktales. But I didn't just want to read a collection of folktales, and this just really went above and beyond my expectations for the type of book I was looking for to be included in our curriculum. It's what I would consider a living book. It makes you interested in the subject matter because it's wrapped up in a story, in a narrative, and it really immerses you in just the daily lives of the characters of this book. It's very well written. Joseph Bruchac is a Native American. He is an Abenaki. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And so you'll often find his name on lists of own voices literature. And his last name is Slovakian. So if you wonder about the last name, it caught my eye because my family is Czech. So there's a lot of crossover between Czech surnames and Slovak surnames. So that's where that part of his name comes in. So anyway, I'll just tell you a little bit about the actual plot so you can decide if your kids might be interested. It follows twin brother and sister, Okwari and Ostistia, and they are just right at the cusp of young adulthood. So this was perfect for my tween, who is not quite ready for the teenage responsibilities, but still not a child anymore. And the themes range from like I'm growing in responsibility and I know that I'm becoming a man. It's told partially from each sibling's perspective, but I do feel like Okwari, the brother, is the main narrative voice. And also just sibling relationships and family structure. One of the things I like about it is through the narrative, not in side pieces as in a textbook, you learn about the family structure of these clans and how, for instance, the women and the men divide the duties, and the father and mother divide the responsibilities of caring for children, what other family members and friends come into the lives of these children. And it tells it in a very by the way sort of way, which I love, and I think that just sticks with children, and it emphasizes that common humanity, that all of our families are different, and that's just a fact, right? It's a matter of fact sort of way without really calling attention to it. But as a mother, I just so appreciated them getting to hear that there are different ways to structure a society and a family. These two main characters have a lot of integrity. They're wonderful, fun, insightful children, and I just love when you get characters that are children that you feel like you want your kids to want to be like these kids, who really think deeply about the decisions they're making and how they will affect the rest of the group. So on the front, you'll see him playing a game that is akin to lacrosse, and this does come into the plot in a significant way toward the end, but there's just a lot of time of getting to know him and his sister and their relationship with the people. It was kind of a slow burn for the first half of the book, but my kids were never bored. It was a wonderful introduction. I'm really looking forward to reading more of this author's work. I think this was a good first book to get to know him. And like I said, now that we're moving forward in history in our homeschool curricula, I do think this was a good foundation before we get into that next episode of history. And last is The Little White Horse by Elizabeth Goudge. And this is also my first book by this author. And I know she wrote so many wonderful things, and I'm familiar with her writing through word of mouth and through TV adaptations, but I had not read anything by her before, which is such a travesty. I'm convinced now that she's going to be a favorite. This is the book that was adapted into a movie called The Secret of Moonacre, and also a show called Moonacre, which is how I knew of the author, but I didn't really connect that this was the same book until I started looking more into the book. So this book was written in 1946, and it's set in 1842 in England. However, I really feel like this has the feeling of a modern fairy tale. I think it's listed in genre, usually under fantasy or just children's literature, but I think what it really is a fairy tale set in a real-life modern setting. So it follows an orphan named Maria Merriweather who comes into her new estate that she will inherit called Moonacre Manor, and it has all kinds of fantastical things going on. There are unusual pets. There are hints at kind of prophecies, and there's a lot of mystery about what has happened throughout history at this manor, and what role she may have to play in making the things that have happened right again. So it's not really a spoiler to let you know that she is called the Moon Princess, and she discovers that one of her ancestors, who was also a Moon Princess, got into a fight with the man she was supposed to marry, ran off into the woods, and things have never been the same since. And the trouble is that these family lines that are supposed to come together and make peace in this realm have hot tempers, and they often disagree about things, and that it's a consistent theme in the history of the Merriweathers. And so she has to decide if she's going to be that kind of Merriweather, or if she's going to kind of overcome that Merriweather tempestuousness and see what can be done for the people living in Merriweather. The fairy tale elements come in not only because she's kind of a princess, but also because there's some mythical creatures involved and some kind of castle-like places and lots of just slightly magical things that go on. And I will say that it takes a long time for Googe to really get us familiar with this world. It's England, but it's not quite England, and we're not really sure. It also has a historical feel. So I would say the first third of the book, my daughter, who's 10, and I were like, this could be good. It's beautiful. It's beautifully written, and it has a lot of humor, just subtle little witty things in it. But we weren't sure. And then once we got toward that middle part and on, we could not stop reading. And it has definitely become a favorite of all time. I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. I think I would possibly give it 4.5 stars if they would let me, but really only because that beginning part almost had us kind of stop, but I had assigned it to us as a literature read, and so I was determined to take what we could out of it, so we didn't stop. If we would have stopped, it would have been a real shame and a real loss. So Elizabeth Googe is the daughter of an Anglican priest, and so she has faith and things of God woven throughout her story in a way that is very natural, kind of how I was saying with the children of the Longhouse is just kind of mentioned in a by the way. So it's not doesn't ever feel like she's evangelizing. It's just part of these characters' life, and I really appreciate that too. I appreciate that anyone can appreciate these stories, regardless of whether or not they share the faith of the character, because it's not really pointed out as like, this is a point that I'm trying to make to you as an author. It's just part of their life. So anyway, I just really think this was delightful, and you can see on the cover one of the mythical creatures that may be included in this story. So if you have fans of unicorns, they may enjoy this, but don't suggest it because it's a part of the mystery. So that hopefully, I mean, I don't love that it's on the cover because it is part of the mystery, but you can't really avoid it if you get this cover art. But if you don't get this cover art, then just don't mention to your little unicorn fan that there's a unicorn in this book, and it'll make that anticipation even more fun for them. So let me know in the comments if you've read any of those 3 books, or if you have them on your list already, and tell me what you've read that kind of is along the similar themes. I always enjoy recommendations to read to my kids, or to hand to my kids to read to themselves. And of course, when you leave me a comment, as always, tell me what you're reading right now to your children or to yourself, and tell me what's in your cup.